What is up, gamers? Welcome to the channel. I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching yet another tier list. This is going to be about the advanced Starforge units, and I have a whole bunch of other tier list videos already as well, so if you haven't seen those, please check those out. I'll put a link right up here to those videos. And I want you guys to know that there's also been a lot of patches lately. They did one a few days ago, and then there's another one coming up tomorrow, actually, on July 11th. So I try to take that into consideration as I'm making these tier lists. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's all, you know, subjective and based on my opinion anyways. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. Also, again, if you haven't seen those patch note videos that I made, please check those out. Again, there will be another link to those, to the playlist for that, and you can get up to date on all the latest patches. And finally, one more thing, I'm going to be doing a lot more streaming as well. I want to try to stream every night, or most nights at least, around 8 to 11 p.m. Central. So if you have some free time and would like to come and hang out with me and chat, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have or give you some tips and tricks on how to play the game and get a little better. All in all, that should be a lot of fun and a good time, so please stop by if you can. And one more link to my streaming playlist. And if you enjoy all this content, please like and subscribe, and there will be more coming on the way soon. So let's jump into the tier list now. First up, we have the Bulwark. And the Bulwark I'm going to put into the B tier, I think. Yeah, so the Bulwark is a pretty big, beefy, bulky air unit. Pretty slow moving, but it has decent damage, and it's versatile. It can shoot up or down. It can shoot, you know, other air units and ground units. So it's nice to have in that regard, and for that reason, you know. However, I think for it being a tier 3 unit, the damage is a bit lacking on it. It's nice having a unit like this that can shoot both air and ground units, but in my opinion, it's just a little bit lacking in the damage department, and so for that reason, I think it's worthy of the B tier. I think it just gets a little bit outclassed by a few other options that you'll see very soon. So let's move on to the artillery we have next. Artillery, I'm going to have to put that in the B tier as well. The artillery, you know, maybe I'll even put this ahead of the Bulwark. So the artillery isn't all that great, but it's not bad either. The problem I have with it is it's in that tier 3 slot, tier 3 Starforge slot. It's a ground unit that does AoE damage to other ground units. So, you know, it's good for what it does, but being in the tier 3 Starforge slot, you know, usually I just want to go for other things. Normally, if I'm going to Starforge, it's probably because I want some air units. And as I've said before, there is quite a lot of competition actually for the AoE damage category of units. And so I feel like there's just other better options for AoE damage. At least, you know, for sure in the Foundry. Actually, to be honest, I think it might be the only AoE damage for Starforge units. But, you know, normally if I want AoE damage, I'm just going to go Foundry. I feel like, you know, maybe there's a really good niche for this. Maybe there's a really good deck that you could work this into, focused around, you know, getting this for your AoE damage, and then maybe you can go some other options in your Foundry slots. It's just, usually it's difficult in a game to go both Foundry and Starforge, let alone, you know, Foundry and Starforge and tier 3 Starforge as well. So the tier 3 units are already hard enough to get to. I actually feel like if they were to rework this a little bit and move it into the tier 2 Starforge slot, I think then it would actually be very strong and very useful. You'd be able to, you know, kind of work this into a lot more decks then, and possibly even, you know, forego the Foundry tech and just stick with your Starforge for AoE damage. So that would be kind of interesting, actually. I wouldn't mind seeing that done. However, as it is, I think it's pretty good in the B tier. Next up, we will go with the Cat Bus. And the Cat Bus, I think I got to put that in the A tier. I've had a lot of fun using this unit. It is also big, tanky, and bulky like the Bulwark, and also very slow, of course, like the Bulwark as well. But this thing just does way more damage to ground units. It's not as versatile, it can't shoot air units. The main focus of this unit is shooting the ground units, so if you want something that's good at that, why not just go the Cat Bus over the Bulwark? So it's also, you know, kind of like the Butterfly as well, except just like a way tankier version of the Butterfly, and does, you know, way more damage too. You do need to have that right setup for it, in the right situation for it, but it's going to be, you know, probably the best at what it does, at being that tanky air unit that can just destroy anything on the ground. So Very good. I'm very happy with that in the A tier. Next up, we have the Locust, and I think another A tier. I'm going to have to put the Locust ahead of the Capus, and I think the Locust is also kind of like the Dragonfly, but like a Dragonfly on steroids. So this thing is insane and a ton of fun. If you get a chance to use this, please give it a try. I think you'll have a lot of fun with it, and I think you can win a lot of games with it as well. It's very versatile. It's on the cheaper side as well, so you can mass a lot more of these up a lot quicker, a lot easier. And once you get a big enough group of these, they can kind of just fly around the map and mow down anything in their path just about. If your opponent is going very heavy into the anti-air, then you might run into some problems. It might be a little tough for you. But if they don't have enough anti-air units, you can actually pick those off and get away with it. So these can be very strong if your opponent does not defend perfectly against them. Like I said, they are super fast. They can fly around the map, be a million different places at once, picking off workers, destroying resource bases. And if your opponent's just not ready for it, then these will basically just straight up win you the game right away. So definitely a very strong unit in my opinion. Next up, we have the Valkyrie. And the Valkyrie, I'm going to have to put that in the S tier. As I've said before, Valkyrie is the king of the air. The Valkyrie is the strongest anti-air unit in the game, I believe, at least in my opinion, but I believe the stats also reflect that as well. And if your opponent is trying to go air units at all, this is going to completely wreck them, at least, assuming that you're able to build up a, big enough size of these to counter whatever air units you might be going, or if you can just avoid like whatever anti-air ground units you might have as well. That's, also maybe the small weakness of the Valkyrie is the ground anti-air units. But at least, the Valkyrie is able to shoot ground units pretty effectively. It's not the best at that, but, once you've cleared out your opponent's air units, then, at least you still have this unit being able to do something and contribute to the rest of the fight by shooting other ground units. So if you really hate going up against any air units, slap this into your deck and you should be good to go then. And so let's move on to the advanced spot. This is a tough one for me. I think I'll put the advanced spot at the top of B. I almost want to put it into A. And the great thing about the advanced spot is that it's so cheap. It only costs 50 matter, I believe, and it doesn't cost any energy, and it can shoot up or down, and it's got that overclock ability, making it kind of like a missile bot on steroids, if you will. However, the missile bot actually costs even more than the advanced spot. So you would think, maybe that would make this thing super good and maybe even overpowered. But with it being in that tier 3 slot, that tier 3 slot is just so difficult to get to. And usually, at least for myself, I personally prefer something that's going to be a bit more tanky, or something that's going to be a bit more devastating overall to my opponent, and hopefully win me the game a little bit quicker and easier. The advanced spot is more of like an economic type choice rather than like a sheer power choice. I think it could work in the right situation, in the right deck. It's definitely not a bad unit, and I think it's very close to being A tier, and I don't think I can quite put it up there. So let's move on. Last but not least, we have the Kraken, or maybe it is least, because I think I'm gonna have to put it in the C tier actually. The Kraken is, if you've ever seen it or used it yourself, congratulations. The Kraken is definitely very, very strong. Don't get me wrong. This basically will end the game. It'll basically win you the game if you're able to get it out. The problem is getting it out. It just is so darn expensive. It costs so many resources that it's just unrealistic, I think, to expect someone to be able to get there in a serious competitive setting. It is a ton of fun if you're able to, pull it off and get it to work, actually. I've only done that once so far. I was playing in a pretty low-ranked game at the time and wanted to give it a try and see if I could get it out. And I was basically just playing super defensive, had the game in full control the entire time. My opponent, didn't really know, how to attack me and whatnot, so I was able to just build up the resources and finally got this thing out and just pushed it into his base and instantly won, basically. So that was fun. But, it's not very realistic, in my opinion, that you'll be able to make that work and be able to win a lot of games with it. But it's definitely very cool, and I'm glad they have something like that in the game. Although I think it would be cool if they were to actually nerf the Kraken a bit, and then also bring the resources down a bit on it, so you could get it out a little more often or frequently. Maybe it would be a bit more viable, actually, if they were to cut its stats in half, but then also cut the resource cost in half. And I feel like, maybe that would be pretty fun as well. And there we go. There we have it. The Advanced Starforge unit tier list. This is the last of the categories. However, I'm going to do one more tier list, so stay tuned for that. Should be coming out tomorrow. That tier list will be covering all of the units all together and kind of comparing and contrasting all of them together rather than within their own category. That way we can kind of get a bigger picture, broader view of how these units, compare to each other. And once again, thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys soon again in the next one.